On Christmas morning, 2008, Christy and Nancy Whelan were getting ready to host their children and grandchildren.
What they didn't know yet was that the home of their daughter Sharon and their young granddaughters was on fire.
At first, it seemed like a terrible accident.
But it wasn't. It was murder.
That's on this episode of So Much Crime,
So Little Time. Hey Jeff, do you celebrate Christmas?
I do.
Are you the cook that cooks the Christmas dinner?
I am the cook, yes.
You know what you could do while you're cooking your Christmas turkey and you have to, wait 8 hours for it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of time I spend in the kitchen on Christmas. What could I do?
You could pick up your phone, obviously washing your hands first, and maybe go onto patreon.com/so much crime, so little time.
That is a great idea. I could spend my whole time in that kitchen waiting for that food to cook, listening to episodes of the show that come out before they get released publicly, some bonus content. I could just listen to the bonus content all day. It's so much fun. There's outtakes, and
I think the outtakes are my fave.
Yeah, they're pretty good. And, what's better at Christmas time than supporting the people you love?
Us. Support us because you love us. Or support us because you hate us and you like slagging us off. And the best way to do that is have more reason to slag us off by listening to more content where we talk. Thanks.
Welcome to So Much Crime, So Little Time. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Dee. In our very first episode, we covered Newstalk's Inside the Crime, Season 3, the Una Linsky murder.
Now we're going back to Season 1 of Inside the Crime. This one is called The Whelan Family Story.
This is a crime that happened on Christmas Day, 2008.
And we thought, what better way to spend Christmas than talking about true crime?
In this preview, we'll introduce you to the story.
No spoilers for what's to come.
You'll also find a link to Inside the Crime Season 1 in our show notes.
In our next episode, we're going to come back and discuss the whole series, but right now, we just want to decide if this is a crime that's worth your time. So, Dee, this crime happened on Christmas Day, 2008, and like so many other crimes we cover, it's a pretty grim story. So before we get to that and the heavy true crime stuff, let's do something a little lighter and hop in the time machine.
All right, Jeff, do you have some games for us today?
I have a slightly new game. It's a movie-themed game. I'm going to read you, I have 2 excerpts from reviews of movies that were very popular in December of 2008, one of which came out on Christmas Day, 2008 in the United States. And I'm going to see if you can guess what they are.
Okay.
Ready?
Go for it.
The first one was written by Kenneth Turan of the LA Times. And here is just a little excerpt from his review. This movie is unabashedly a romance. All the story's inherent silliness aside, it is intent on conveying the magic of meeting that one special person you've been waiting for. Maybe it is possible to be 13 and female for a few hours after all.
Okay.
All right. What do you think? What movie could that have been? Do you want a
Maybe.
clue?
Give me that last line again.
Maybe it is possible to be 13 and female for a few hours after all. You want a clue?
It's making me think of Freaky Friday. No.
Mm-mm.
13 going on 30? Is that a movie? 30 going on 13?
Yeah, good guesses. Wrong, though.
Okay. Give me a clue.
All right, I'll give you a clue. This is based on a book, first in a series. It is set in the Pacific Northwest.
Pacific Northwest. Why do we have to say Pacific? Is it not just the Northwest?
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. They call it the Pacific Northwest. It is about a young woman who falls in love with a vampire.
Sparkly man?
Sparkly man, yeah.
Is it Twilight?
It's Twilight, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Came out on November 21st, 2008. Was very popular.
Was 13?
I don't know. That's what the review said.
How old was he? I mean, he was like hundreds of years old, but how old was he pretending to be?
Bit of a May December romance there. Okay. Second and last one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do have a song. I actually have a flat read of a song today. I decided to go old school.
Woof.
All right, this one is a movie that came out on Christmas Day, 2008. This review comes from Todd McCarthy of Variety. That is irrelevant, but I thought I'd give credit. As broad and obvious as it could be, but delivers on its own terms, thanks to sparky chemistry between its sunny blonde stars, Owen Wilson and Jennifer Aniston, and the unabashed emotion milking of the final reel. This is the second review that used the words unabashed. Fox has a winner here. Fox is the company that put out the movie. Fox has a winner here, likely to be...
Marty and me?
Wow. Yeah. How did you get that?
That is Owen Wilson, Jennifer Aniston. It's so lovely.
The last
Have
phrase...
you watched it?
No, never seen it.
I don't think you should.
Phrase, Fox is a winner here, likely to be irresistible to almost everyone but cats. I don't want to watch that movie. It sounds sad.
I don't think it's the right movie for you.
It's sad, isn't it?
I was not a dog owner when I watched this movie.
I don't think I can
and
watch
I
that movie.
bawled. Okay, I have a flat read for you. This song came out on the 18th. It went to number 1 on the 18th of December. It was number 1 on the 25th of December. It is a cover.
Great.
Okay. If you don't get it, which, stakes, the bar is set very low. If you don't get this, I'll be really surprised. But if you don't get it, I will tell you who the original is by. Okay. Your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty, and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your throne and she cut your hair. Fuck's sake, Jeff.
The way you read these is so goddamn hard.
Like 90% of this song is the name of it.
Is there more or is that it?
I can't read anymore because it's mainly just the repetition of the name of the song.
Can you do it again?
Okay, I'll do one more piece, but not the same piece.
Okay.
Maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love was how to shoot somebody who outdrew you.
Is it Hallelujah?
Yes.
I thought it might be.
How did it take you so long?
Because the fucking way you read these.
It's like part of the thing. I'm not supposed to read it in tune. So
Yeah.
This was Alexandra Burke brought it out. She won the X Factor. And this was her song that she brought out on the Christmas number 1. And it went to number 1.
I do want to acknowledge that even though it took me a while, I did actually get the right answer. So I'm
Wow.
like 3 out of 27 or something now. I don't know.
Yeah, like 1/9. That's what you're shooting for.
Yeah. All right. That is our time machine for today.
Dun dun dun. Okay, into the podcast that we're discussing today. So it's Inside the Crime, Season 1, the Whelan family story. This podcast was released in the winter of 2021. The host is Frank Greaney. For anyone that did listen to our very first episode, our very first podcast that we covered, Frank Greaney was also the host of that podcast. So we are familiar with him. It's got 5 episodes and each, they range from 30 to 45 minutes long. So not a huge undertaking here. But there's a lot to cover.
In the first episode, we hear from Christy and Nancy, who are the parents and grandparents of the victims here. We learn kind of a little bit about the family history, how their daughter Sharon came into their lives. We can talk more about that. That's a big part of this first episode. And also about their granddaughters, so Sharon's daughters, 7-year-old Zara, 2-year-old Nadia. And we get a lot about their personalities, who they were as kids and people. And then towards the end of the episode, we hear about this Christmas in 2008 where there was this fire where Sharon and her daughters died. And it was, we get a little bit of how it was initially thought to be an accident. We don't really get into what happened or what will ensue, but that's what's to come in the next few episodes. So, Dee,
Yeah.
that's a very quick version of what happened. Where would you like to start in discussing this?
I think in a way we need to kind of mimic the podcast and how it spoke about it. We've already said there was a house fire, and it was known, at least by the end of this, or it's alluded to in episode 1, this was not an accident. Sharon and her 2 daughters were killed in the house fire. We know that in episode 1. And the focus isn't their actual the murder. The focus isn't the horrendousness of the murder itself. The focus is Sharon and her daughters as people, like who they were, their personalities, and also the very raw and very honest impact and heartbreak that the family have all gone through since then. So I feel like we should speak more about the emotions. This was really emotional, Jeff. I think I was 4 minutes in and I was having a cry. This wasn't dramatized, but it was dramatic in that it was so raw.
It's very raw. It's a lot of Christy and Nancy, who are, 10 to 12 years removed from this event when this was recorded. This came out in, what year did this come out?
2021.
2021. So yeah, so 13 years later that this is being recorded, and it's still obviously very present for them, and they are still sort of they seem to be still very much dealing with the grief of what happened. I mean, it's hard to listen to at times. I think this is one of the more emotionally intense things I think we've listened to.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We're not even like, we aren't getting any anger, really.
No.
Like, we really are getting this heartbreak, and it's really being highlighted in such a kind of a banal way, which I think really increases the heartbreak and those emotions. Sharon's dad, Christy, speaks about his walks, going on walks and having the chats with Zara, the 7-year-old, his 7-year-old granddaughter, and her personality and how she wants the chats, and she was kind of wise beyond her years. And we're hearing of him going out to, which is such an Irish thing, but going out to put the flags down on a hurling field before a game, and she's there helping him. They were just like the best of friends. And these are all, him walking them to school or taking them to school. My dad takes, when they visit, takes our kids to school. They have the chats, and they have these gorgeous chats together, and it's just so normal, the things that they're missing, and Nancy missing the feel of their hair and doing the braids in their hair. And again, it's not this, there is no drama, there is no sensationalism in this. It's very much, we were just going about our normal day, and this heartbreaking thing happened, and our hearts have forever remained shattered since then. And they don't miss the big or there's no sensationalist, I don't know, the memories and the things they miss are really the very plain, mundane, maybe things that people often give out about having to do. Like, they're the things that they're missing. And it was so emotional.
Yeah, I don't know. Something I struggled with and wanted to ask you about was, at times I felt like it was so vulnerable and so intense and so incredibly sad that it felt like it was exploiting their grief a little bit. And that made me a little, there were parts where I felt uncomfortable listening to this and their sadness. Did that strike you at all?
No. What struck me is how open and honest they were and how vulnerable they were. I feel like, especially as like a country man, I like my image in my head. The image in my head of Christy is might be very off, but from my experience of, older country gentlemen in Ireland, it's the rough. You don't go into the emotions, and I feel like maybe this was a therapeutic thing. Like, I don't necessarily know that they're going to open their doors and their hearts and their emotions up to someone without thinking like, this is what I need to do to tell the story. I also feel a little bit like, maybe I'm wrong, but are you challenging that because it's hard to hear an older gentleman getting so emotional and being so honest about his emotions? Because there is obviously this stereotype and this kind of thing about like men not being open about their emotions. So do you feel that might be a you thing?
I don't. Maybe, sure. I don't think so, though. I think what I'm reacting to isn't so much the Christie and his sharing of emotions as it is this couple together. I think the things that I felt most uncomfortable would be when Christy was talking about something, talking about a memory, and then Nancy kind of chimes in, and it was hard for me to tell a little bit. And maybe this is my struggles with accents, and it was a little hard to hear, but it felt a little bit like it was this older couple, this sweet older couple who we were sitting in while they grieved, while they cried together, while they were incredibly vulnerable. And I don't know, it just at times it felt like we shouldn't be hearing this, or it felt a little bit like, how you feel when you watch a movie like, what's a good example? Like Schindler's List. This is an extreme example. Schindler's List is one of those movies that I think is important. I think is excellent. I think it's very well made. But there's also times where I watch and I think, like, this is a fictional movie about a real event. And if this was a documentary, and I know there are documentaries about the Holocaust, but it seems like something we shouldn't be seeing. Like, we should remember it. We should respect it, but also it's not entertainment, right? Like, it's not meant to entertain. And this I think has this part of the true crime space, I think, is where I get a little uncomfortable, because who is this for, I guess, is a question I had. You don't listen to this to derive joy from it. That would be masochistic. Why do you listen to something like this?
I sort of get where you're coming from here, but I feel like this is not as if Frank Greaney went down there a week after this happened, put a microphone in, and in the most vulnerable position was trying to get stuff out of this couple. That's not what this is. They have set up a situation, they have gone down, they've asked questions, they've spoken to the brother. There's obviously a lot of thought gone in from the family on whether this is like an okay thing that they're happy with and they're comfortable with. And I think we've brought this up a few times, and I think the big differentiation for me in this situation, like how we can detangle that from situations where we feel like people have been taken advantage of, is I think they want this story to be out there. I think they need Zara and Nadia and Sharon's lives to be remembered pre this murder, but also, like, don't forget that we went through this. People are so quick to forget. Quick to forget. I cannot imagine going through what they went through. I cannot imagine people starting to forget, people not talking. Like, I've heard this so much when I'm reading or listening to podcasts on grief, not in a true crime situation, but just a podcast on grief and how people deal with grief, or from people who are dealing with grief, when they say the worst thing is people avoid talking about the person. Like, that person was so special to me. I don't want to stop talking about them, but in a way, when I talk about them, I feel awkward because the other person feels awkward. They don't know how to deal with it. And it's like, people don't live on if you don't speak about them, if you don't remember them, and if you don't say, this was fucking hard, and this is still hard, and this doesn't go away. And I think one of the lines Nancy said was, if the Lord allows us another day, we'll be back down here again tomorrow. If the Lord allows us, if the Lord, and there's a lot of like religion and kind of connection to religion there, which totally makes sense to me because I understand where they are.
So I guess you're saying if you're answering my question of who this is for, it's in a way to remember these people, and that's the purpose it's serving. And for us, the people who did not know Sharon or Zara or Nadia, like this is a way of us getting a sense of who these people were. And like, is that right?
Yeah. On Christmas Day, they don't celebrate it anymore, Christy and Nancy. They say, no, there's a service and that's it. You know, that's how we celebrate Christmas Day. And I'm sure on Christmas Day, there's not a chance on Christmas Day when I wake up to the exact scenario that Christy and Nancy were expecting that day, which is my brothers, my family, all of the grandkids, my parents celebrating together with my sister-in-laws. I'm not going to think, Jesus, like, aren't we so lucky? Because like this is life-changing. And I think that's
helpful perspective. I think that's something I wrestled with in listening to this. I think hearing your explanation of it makes sense to me. Like I don't think I disagree with that. I think you may be right in terms of maybe part of why it made me uncomfortable to listen to. I think I'm curious as we listen to the whole thing. Like I am presuming this is going to pivot and be more about the crime itself. But this first episode, I think looking back on it, it was real heavy on the sort of telling us who these people were as people, not being sort of sensationalist about the crime itself. And it's one of those things I think I respect a lot. I think I admire the construction of it, but also it was hard to listen to. I think both those things are true.
I mean, to be honest, I think I would judge you if you didn't find this hard to listen to.
Sure.
Like,
that's fair.
It was fucked up.
Yeah.
For want of a better word. Sorry, Mom.
I think because it is so hard to listen to, and it is about such tragic victims.
Yeah.
And it's, it almost couldn't be worse in a way in terms of like a mom and two little girls. That's about as sad and tragic as it gets in the things we've listened to. And the element of the
Christmas Day and the anticipation of the day,
and that it's
and how
Christmas.
All of the build up every year has now been destroyed and is the emotional trigger. Like that, I think that's also why the emotions are so high here.
And then we're hearing from the older grandparents, and they're just sort of talking about all the ways in which these three people were so angelic and wonderful and funny and beautiful, and it's mythologizing them in a way that may be 100% accurate, but it's just like pulling at those heartstrings, and it's very effective and it feels very true, but
it doesn't, as you say, it's true. It's not like as if it's put on, or I don't know, it feels very raw.
Yeah.
We didn't even discuss the additional element, which is so emotional, is like the story of Christy and Nancy's first daughter.
Yeah, I think Jacqueline,
who caught a fever, unsure, basically died just before she was able to walk, just after she got her pair of shoes. And there was a lot of talk about how unfair it was on them. She got the same virus as Nancy's sisters, two boys, and they were fine, and Jacqueline never recovered. And And then we hear how Sharon and it was adopted because Nancy was like, I think I want a little girl. I think we should adopt. And she goes to adopt and builds this bond and then finds out that Sharon has 2 other brothers. And she's like, well, I'm not just taking Sharon. I'm taking these 2 boys as well. And she went from having 2 kids to having 5 kids. Wild.
I think as we preview this show and try to make a recommendation of who should listen to this, is this worth your time? Is this something that is for you? I think it's important. I think we've talked about this now, but I wanted to make sure we did. I think it's important to know what you're getting into with this. I think it's important to go in ready for this because otherwise it's going to hit you real hard. And if you're not prepared for that, I think it's a tough one.
That's a very valid point. And I think it's definitely something, hopefully people will understand. And if you think that this maybe isn't for you, maybe coming back and listening to our recap will give you the story and the crime and really touch on some interesting points I'm sure that they'll bring up, but not, if you feel like it's not for you to listen to the actual podcast, maybe that might be for you. How do you think Frank Greaney did?
How do I think Frank Greaney did?
I don't think you liked him in Inside the Crime season 3. Is that accurate?
You know what's funny about that? I actually went back to our notes from that episode, from our preview, so from our very first episode. And I actually, specifically for that point, I was trying to remember what I thought of him then. I guess I could have listened to the episode, but instead I went and looked at the notes. And I really didn't have anything in my notes about him. And I think you're right. I think that's true. I think here he did I thought the opening, we didn't talk about the opening. I thought the opening, he did a really nice job of scene setting. And then he did
with the dog.
What I think I like, the dog, yeah. He did what I think I like in a lot of the ones we listen to, where he really lets the people tell their story. And he kind of gives signposts along the way, but he's not prominent. He's not editorializing, really, that I recall. I don't think he really did. And so he's just sort of there as a guide, but mostly in the background. So far. So we'll see if that, we've certainly seen how episode 1 doesn't always
mimic the rest.
The pattern doesn't always. Yeah. What did you think?
I really thought he did an incredible job of balancing like kind of being a professional journalist and hosting while also remaining like very empathetic to the family. And I felt like he remained empathetic to the family by pulling back. By not looking for that spotlight. And hopefully that continues with the rest of the podcast. As you said, we'll see, because episode 1 is often not conducive to how the format or the host's role plays, as we've seen previously. But yeah. It
sounds like you're very eager to keep listening.
I'm very eager. I want to know what fucking disgusting prick did this. I'll tell you what, Jeff. There's no way it was a woman who did this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'm intrigued. I'm hoping that the guards come out of it, the Gardaí come out of it very strong and that they do their job well. And I'm really hoping that the family get, again, justice. Like, what is justice? Like, how could you even get justice? There is no such thing as justice for anyone in this case.
Yeah.
But as much as they possibly can.
We will find out.
We will find out.
Before we go, just a reminder, if you enjoy these discussions, go ahead and give us a rating on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen. It really helps other people to discover the show. Even better, leave a comment. Leave a comment on this episode. Let us know what you think. And tell a friend. Tell anyone you know. Next time, we'll discuss how the murder investigation unfolded.
Was there justice for the Whelan family?
And what is the legacy of this terrible crime?
That's on the next So Much Crime,
So Little Time.
So Much Crime, So Little Time is a production of MimeGov Media. The executive producer is Paxton Calariso. Our associate producer is Blythe Ty. Theme music was composed by Vyacheslav Starostin. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to this show in your podcast app. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and a review. Even better, tell your friends. To join the discussion, look for us on social media. Check out the show notes for all the links. Thanks for listening.